think we're good. I think we're good. Yeah, we're good. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Making Noise podcast. My name is Adam Kanoa. I am the host. Really excited to present this to you, for you to be here. If you're new, please like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on your preferred platform of choice for podcasts, please follow and download the episode. If there are any platforms you would like me to put the podcast on to be featured, I'll gladly do that. Please contact me, let me know. I'll see what I can do. Hopefully it can, it's been pretty easy so far. So hopefully there are no barriers to, be featured on whatever platform for podcasts. We'll see. I wanted to make a couple announcements for this week. So first thing is, on my website, adamkanoa.com, I added a resource page. And on this page, I document all of the different media that is mentioned in each episode. So for example, when someone mentions a movie, book, types of art, YouTube videos, I provide the link to that source and where you can go purchase it or watch the video. And I also give a little blurb about the context in which it was mentioned and why it was suggested. So I'm continuously updating that with each episode. And I'm also publishing clips each week from each episode. So to give you little snippets about conversations that took place with each guest. So yeah, go to my website. You can check that out. Another announcement: this Tuesday, January 19th at 7:30 Central Standard Time p.m. New Music Chicago presents Jonathan Henna. Yeah, I definitely didn't say that last name correctly. I'm sorry, Jonathan. We've never met, but I don't mean to butcher your name there. His last name is spelled Hannau, so it's Hannah with a U at the end. Yeah, missing the pronunciation. So the performance on Tuesday is Jonathan's presenting his work for piano titled Pieces I Wrote on a Cold Winter Night, and it's in 7 movements. So I think it'll be an interesting and exciting performance. It'll be live streamed on YouTube for free, so you can watch it from the comfort of your home. And third announcement, I'm opening up my guitar studio. So if you're interested in guitar lessons, please contact me. I would love to help you develop your skills and get you to the point of playing the music that you want to play. I offer 3 different payment options. There's weekly rates, which is at full price. There's monthly rates, which is at 5% discount. And quarterly, every 3 months, which is at an 8% discount. So there are different payment options based on whatever needs might fit you best. So please contact me. And then that's all for announcements. Yeah, so this episode 13, features Matt Henson. Matt Henson is a double bassist, and he's in Alinéa Ensemble. If you've never heard of Alinéa, they were on episode 11 of the podcast, and I'll put that somewhere. You can click it and go watch it. Matt was on because he unfortunately couldn't be a part of the episode when the ensemble was on, when Alinéa was on. So I was talking with him and saying, we gotta make this happen, man. We gotta make up for lost time. And here it is. Here's making up for it. He's the missing piece to the Alinéa puzzle, if you will. And yeah, in this conversation, we talk about what it's like moving across country during the pandemic. We talk about finding ways to communicate to non-musicians about what the music is that we perform and play and write. We talk about baseball. We talk about Philip Glass's memoirs, or his memoir. We talk about all kinds of stuff. So I hope it's something that you get a lot out of and you enjoy. And yeah, like I said, please like and subscribe. And thank you for watching and or listening. All right, we'll see you soon. My name is Adam Kanoa, and I am a collaborative composer. Join me in the search for a career in classical music. This is the Making Noise podcast.
I have this mess going on down here.
Uh,
I just kind of throw this stuff all in a duffel bag when I'm traveling with it, and it turned my power strip off.
Oh God.
So yeah, that one's on me.
It's all good, man. There's so much like with all this back and forth being a musician, and you need to carry your equipment and stuff. There's so much room for error.
Yeah, for sure. And like I don't know, I'm not a hardware guy by any means. I mean, I have this stuff because this is how we're performing now, but I don't know how it works. And we were trying to figure it out for like 10 minutes the other day, and I hadn't put the power supply into the interface, and so
Yeah,
that's on me.
that's that's all right. Yeah, I go through this sort of stuff too. I mean, like, I have a pretty straightforward setup for the most part. Like, my microphone is a USB connection, so it can just go straight into my laptop. I should plug in my interface, but I haven't hooked it up.
Yeah. I sort of went, in the spirit of not knowing anything about this, I went a little bit too far on getting this, but my parents paid.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. No, I would be going for the $20 USB microphone I could find if I didn't have a little bit of help. But yeah, so I just got this. It was a recommendation from someone at the school, and I took it out of the box, and I was like, oh God, here we go. I have put myself in a world I don't understand.
Did it come with an instruction manual, like the physical copy?
Yeah, it did. So,
okay.
And like I mean, I know what everything plugs into, so that was a start. But
yeah, that's important. I mean, my mom for I think it was my birthday last year got me and my girlfriend a printer, and the printer didn't come with a physical manual. It was like a PDF you had to download on the website.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is so inconvenient, man. Like,
yeah, just put it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I paid good money to not have to use my own paper for this instruction manual. Man.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. It's like a printer. We purchased the printer, and in order for us to have the manual, we have to download it, which then might mean we'd have to print it then,
Well, I mean, it's a instant affirmation that the printer does indeed work. So
that's true. That's true. Are you a car person at all?
Not even a little bit. In terms of like knowing how to work on them, is that your question?
Not really. I mean, like, you don't have to know how to work on them in order to know what I'm about to say. But supposedly, for the last couple of years, they stopped including spare tires in cars.
Huh.
I don't know if that's true or not, but
well, I have a 2019 car, and I don't know if it has a spare tire or not. I know it comes with like a jack and tools, like the tools that come in the car, the siphon and whatever, but I don't know if there's a tire in there.
What kind of a car is it?
It's a Jeep.
Okay, like a Wrangler?
It's a Cherokee.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'd love to be rolling around San Diego in a Wrangler, but it doesn't necessarily hold the bass super well, so.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah, so for anyone who will be watching this or listening, Matt is double bassist in Alinéa, who was on episode 11 of the podcast, and this episode right here is we're making up for lost time because Matt couldn't be on the episode. So I was like, we got to get you in here, man.
Yeah, I'll tell you what happened, and this is. I guess this one's on me. Yeah, there's no other way to spin it. But I got an email a couple days before the podcast from a teacher I had saying, "Oh, just a reminder, this project is due on Friday." And I was like, "What do you mean a reminder? This is the first I'm hearing of this project that's due on Friday." And the project was to sit in on the project was to sit in on a class taught by another instructor, and it was a class on teaching. So sit in on a class, write a review, what you like, what you don't like, this, that, and the other. And so I've never gone to this school under normal circumstances. I've only gone to UCSD under the Zoom circumstances. So the only teacher that I know is the bass teacher here, and so I asked him, what are you up to? And he said, oh, the only thing I have is, and it was like the exact times that we had scheduled for the podcast. I was like, oh. After we went back and forth for weeks, just like trying to get 7 schedules to line up, and we finally found it, and then 2 days before it just fell apart. But this was my reminder on how important it is to read and actually know what's in the syllabus, because the project had not been mentioned, but it sure was in the syllabus waiting for me. But I wasn't the only one that made that mistake. We have a Discord chat for that class, and as soon as that email came out, it was like, we have a project.
Everyone's like panicking. Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's such a common mistake that all of us make. Like, I know at the beginning of the semester, I would be very thorough with the syllabus and read it for each class I was in. And then as the semester would go on, I'd be like, oh my God, this thing's due on Tuesday, or I have to read 80 pages in 3 days. Like,
yeah. And it's so easy to look at something that's down on the bottom of the syllabus and be like, we're never going to get there. But in reality, it's like 7 weeks away. So,
oh, it comes so fast.
Yeah. Yeah, especially we're in quarters here. So, syllabus day is 10 weeks from the final, and that's it. So
I've been through 3 different institutions, and I've never had quarters before. I've always had semesters.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's weird, because first of all, it went super fast. It goes super fast in the forward direction, but then when you're at the end looking that way, it's like, oh my gosh, like, that's a lot of change to pack into 10 weeks. But particularly for the class that I was teaching. But the thing that I assume is weird, I'll find out in what is 9 weeks now, is spring break, and then we come back and we have a whole new schedule of classes, which is certainly not what I'm used to. But also, we started. Let's see, what was last Monday?
The 3rd? I don't know.
The 4th. Yeah, we started classes on January 4th. My NEC friends, they're like, we start in the last week of January. And
yeah.
Like in an airplane on New Year's Day, going back to have like one day to hit the ground, or I guess 2 days to hit the ground, and then here comes school again.
Just sneaks up on you. How long was your winter break?
Oh, here, now that I have my calendar open. So the last thing that I did was I proctored. I guess proctored is the final for the class that I was teaching on the 16th, and then got back on the 4th. So that's that's less than 3 weeks.
Like what, like 2.5 weeks maybe?
Yeah, but see, we graduated NEC near the beginning of May, and then I didn't have anything again until October. So summer break was like 2 summer breaks for me, going from a school that does semesters to a school that does quarters. So, that was nice.
Yeah, gives you a lot more time to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, a lot more time to move to a different corner of the country during a pandemic is what it ended up being.
What was that like, man? Because you're originally you're not from Boston, right?
No, I'm from Atlanta.
Oh, you're from Atlanta.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So I went vertically corner to corner, and now I'm going across. So everybody keeps telling me, they're like, you gotta land in Seattle. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah, it's true.
Um,
Or actually Alaska.
oh, that would be. See, I've been reading. I don't have it. Usually, I have it on my desk. I've been reading John Luther Adams' new book. And it's called, Music, Solitude, Alaska. And I say I've been reading it. I'm like 2 chapters in, so I can't like speak on it that much. But just I went to Alaska. I was super young. I really liked it. But like listening to him talk so fondly about like living in the wilderness of Alaska, I'm like, man, I do need to end up out there. That would be that would be the dream.
Totally.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. But
But
then
yeah,
he's oh,
no, sorry, no, please continue.
then one of the first anecdotes he tells is about how he lived like wilderness, and how he would have to travel by planes in blizzards that were doing this to get everywhere. And I'm like, maybe I'll live, maybe I'll live in one of the cities and say I did it. No, but
That's that makes me think of you know Richie Valens and the Big Bopper, Buddy Holly, like
oh
50s rock artists.
yeah, vaguely.
Yeah, Richie Valens wrote that song "Oh Donna" and "La Bamba."
Yes, that one.
They died in a plane crash while they were on tour in the middle of a winter storm in like I don't know Wisconsin or something, and like when you know seeing like learning about the details behind it and stuff like that, it's like holy shit, that's just that must have been so scary. Like,
Yeah, because like so the first time I flew from Atlanta to Boston, it was, let's see, February, I think, because I was a senior in high school auditioning for BU, and it wasn't snowing, but it had snowed, and it was bad weather time, and one of the ways that you can land in Logan Airport is like 4 feet from the water. Like the runway goes all the way out to the water, and ever since I ended up in Boston, I've been on airplanes, all the time. But I hadn't been on an airplane in years, and it was like wind that was doing this in a Southwest commercial airliner. I can't even imagine those little tiny planes or the private planes or whatnot doing that. And I was like, and my dad was there. He travels a lot, and he's like, no, this happens. Like, yeah,
doesn't change
how?
the fact that it makes me nervous. Like,
Yeah, yeah. And then, oh god, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I was gonna say that makes me question those people that are like, I actually really love flying. Like, what do you mean you really love flying? Like, like I'm not here to put down whatever it is that makes you happy, but that's one of those agree to disagree things where I'm never gonna see the other perspective, but what have you. And then
yeah.
and then on top of that, that's about a 2+ hour flight, Atlanta to Boston. So that's what I've sort of set my expectation for. And now Boston to San Diego is like 4.5.
Mhm.
So um, that was miserable the first time. Circling back to what it was like to move this summer. Yeah.
Did you fly like did you have to bring furniture with you or was your place furnished and everything like that?
No, I had to bring it with me. But when I was living in Boston, I was with 3 roommates. We were in a 4-bedroom apartment. Alex being one of them, um, and so a lot of stuff got distributed in that move, and then we the the couch in that apartment was super iconic, but uh, it ended up on the curb because it was like springs falling out of the bottom, and like we picked it up and there were just screws everywhere under it. But so basically, yeah, I brought my bedroom stuff with me, and then I had to get furniture for like the living room when I got out here. So yeah.
I had a buddy who went from Maryland to here in Chicago for his doctorate, and he had like, I don't even know how long. So I think, I don't know, a couple of weeks went by before he got his furniture.
Yeah. My mom is a very gifted online shopper. So she worked out the logistics of it all. She like, scoured the internet to find scheduled deliveries and, this, that, and the other, so that um, so that when I got here, it was, I think, 2 days before everything that we had purchased new was here and set up. And like that is an organizational skill set that I do not have. I could have never made that work. But yeah, I mean, so I brought the bed and the mattress, and that was all I needed. But like we finished unloading the shipping container. I went to bed and I woke up at 8 o'clock the next morning to somebody knocking on my door, and they're like, "Your couch is here." I'm like, "All right, whatever."
Just in time for breakfast.
Yeah, yeah. So
That's fantastic.
yeah, so in that way, it was a lot. It went pretty smoothly, and I much appreciate that. But moving out of Boston was pretty miserable because so I went. Well, there was a lot of question of whether I was going to come home at all during the summer, but then there was that little tiny glimpse of hope that we had on the graph where everything was going back down. We're like, oh, we're pulling out of this, it'll be whatever. So I went home for a little while, and my dad and I went back up to Boston, and there were some people in town, but no one wanted to be around anybody who had just gotten off an airplane. So my dad and I loaded up the truck for a day, and then we took it and loaded it into a shipping container and whatnot. And then he got the good fortune of sleeping on the aforementioned couch with the springs and stuff. And yeah, so that was pretty miserable to not have. I mean, understandably so, but to not be able to recruit help in good conscience made that pretty difficult. And then when we got here, this apartment actually has an elevator, so so it was much less me and him taking many breaks on the stairs with the bed and the bookshelf and whatnot. So yeah.
That makes all the difference. I mean, it's a good thing you didn't move to New York City. There's like,
oh yeah,
a lot of apartments don't have elevators.
yeah.
Or even here in Chicago, actually, I don't think. Well, I'm sure there are plenty, but my apartment doesn't.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing about where I live here is everything is a big apartment complex with this one has, I think, 8 buildings and like 250 units of build. Like they're managing like thousands of units. But the place I was living in Boston was this one brownstone with 3 just like 3 units, all with this little tiny staircase wrapped around them. So actually that plays into the reason why that couch was so iconic. Is because when we moved in, and the other thing about Boston is you cannot sign a lease that is not September 1st to August 31st, 1 year binding lease. So September 1st is a miserable day to be in the city of Boston because moving trucks everywhere, everybody's out on their sidewalk, with whatever. So somebody
Yes.
that had moved out in the building next to us left this big couch, that we were like, oh yeah, we're just gonna take that. We're gonna take that, and we tried to take it up the front, and we got all the way up the stairs, and we couldn't angle it into our door. So then we took it around the back and tried to take it up the fire escape, or secondary egress. It's an indoor fire escape, and we got it in the door and couldn't get it angled to start going up the stairs. And this was over the course of a few hours, and so we had started this at like 7 o'clock, any normal time, and we looked down, and it was like 11:30, and the people who live in the unit that has a door right next to there were like, hey, it's like almost midnight on a weeknight, can you stop slamming a couch into our door? And we were like, sure thing. So then we ended up having to throw it off of the stairs that lead up to that door. Like, there's one set of stairs outside that go to that door, and we had to throw it off that little landing because we couldn't angle it back down the stairs. So we in our haste to save a couple dollars on getting a couch, we ruined a perfectly good couch that someone with a bigger staircase could have taken advantage of.
I think that's a pretty common thing to do when you live on a second story or higher apartment, depending on where you are, is when you have some furniture, sometimes you just have to kind of toss it out the window. Like,
yeah. And there were cars down there, and we were like, hopefully it doesn't bounce. And we're like, it's a couch, it's not going to bounce.
yeah.
And it didn't bounce. So yeah, no harm done. But then we ended up going and getting one like that was in this little box from Target.
Hopefully from here forward, your furniture experiences are a little more easygoing, like,
Yeah.
less strenuous.
Yeah. I have a couple threads that I want to pick up on from the Alinéa interview. The biggest one being, you said you're a stand-up comedy guy.
Oh, I love comedy.
So, you know Mike Birbiglia's new special on Netflix.
The one where all the stuffed
toys.
animals come down. Yeah.
Yeah, and he starts that with talking about the unique love between man and couch, and he's like, and it's like a bed that hugs you, and I can feel the bond growing because I don't know. We'll for sure get into this more, but it's very hard for me to make a schedule for a day. I right now I'm in a place where I sort of have to roll with the punches, but then every time I get back, I got a couch there, I got a PlayStation there. the bond is growing.
That's a deadly combination.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Is the challenge that you're facing often with your schedule at school and stuff, like because you said last semester or last quarter you were teaching a class or something, right?
Yeah. So I've never been on a podcast, and I've never had the authority to say, for those of you who are listening. So I'm a doctoral student at UCSD, and all of the grad students in the music department have academic employment. So most of us are TAs, and then there's some grad student researchers and readers.
For those who don't know, TAs are teaching assistants.
Yes. So yeah, they sent us this this survey during the summer that was just like talk about, or the survey that was like, we'll help you get paired up with a TA assignment that is that's good for you. And it was basically like, what are your musical interests? And I was like, theory. But so I taught last quarter music 1A, which is basically the course for undergraduate non-music students. That's like, this is a quarter note, this is the C major scale, um you know and then like week 10 we got into this is a triad. um and so now I'm teaching music 1B, which is the continuation of that into, I believe, into simple 4-part harmony and um, things of that nature. So that's what I was teaching. Yeah. But um, in terms of building a schedule, I the main thing I think that, other than not having been in the Alinéa call, that I think was a big topic for this was being a multidisciplinary musician. I'm a bassist, conductor, theorist. I'm like that much of a composer, but that's my application for my theory when I want something fun to do. But right now, first and foremost, above all of those things, I am a Target employee. This is a very expensive city, and so I have 18 to 24 hours a week working at Target. And with my class schedule working out the way it does, particularly last quarter, where most of my stuff was pretty early in the morning, I would be scheduled, opening, closing, just like switching off on those. So I ended up being in a really backwards position from the stereotypical wake up early on the weekdays, sleep in on the weekends, because I would be closing at Target on weekdays and then opening on weekends. So the weekdays I'd be able to sleep in 7:30 ish for classes, but then weekends I was up at 5:30 for 7 o'clock opening shift. But the way that things work out this quarter, classes are typically later in the day, so I should be on the early to bed, early to rise schedule, if you will.
Right. Is that something at Target? Are you able to have a set schedule, or do they kind of shift it around where you don't really know?
It's not the exact same. It's not the exact same every week, but it's pretty similar, depending on what days people have blocked out their availability on just that day, because we submit an availability for what a typical week looks like for us, but then you can request like, I'm not available on this day, and so things get moved around a lot to accommodate that. So like, I don't have anything on Monday, so I worked an 8-hour shift at Target on Monday, but then I got the schedule for next week, and I'm just 4 hours then, and then they've added the other 4 hours somewhere later in the week. So it's variations on the same thing, if you will.
Right. Do you teach bass lessons at all or anything like that?
No. I'd like to get into it. But now is probably a very difficult time to recruit new students for private instrumental instruction. And I don't know how effective I would be as a teacher, never really having done that before, and then starting it out on Zoom. But I have done my fair share of chamber music coaching at summer camps and things of that nature, which I mean, quite frankly, is the reason why I really want to move into teaching bass, is because I really enjoy it, and it. I mean, this is getting into something different, but bass players all make the same mistakes, and it's really nice to hear them from a third person perspective. So I spent 2 weeks coaching a trio of 3 bass players that were high schoolers, and they were very, very gifted high schoolers. So it's not like making the mistakes of like, oh, I don't know where this note is or anything like that. It was and then I went and practiced that week, and I was like, I have a whole new ear for being able to assess my own playing while I'm here practicing by myself. So to answer your question, yeah, I'd love to, but this is the point in my life where I thought maybe that's something that I can start doing, and then the same way it has tanked everything this year, or last year, I guess, that got wiped out with the pandemic.
Well, I gotta say, I'd like to rally for you, man. I think it's a great time for you to start. I would be psyched to if I could link one of the videos of you playing into the podcast here, put it in the description or something, be like, hey, if you need bass lessons, Matt's your guy. All across the world, too.
Well,
well, you can
that is true. So
Zoom with people in like Taiwan or something. I don't know.
Yeah. That's a great perspective. I hadn't thought about the scope of reach. So yeah, I don't know, if you are a listener of the Making Noise podcast and you know someone who needs bass lessons, I'm always happy to help.
Matt's your guy. We're sending out the bat signal now. I think we could see about what kind of reach we can get with this, and hopefully help build your studio. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, we're all kind of going through this and trying to figure out like how am I going to make some money, and like you're working at Target and stuff, and I'm even trying to expand my guitar studio a little bit to see if I can get a couple more students. But yeah, you might not know until you try, right?
We'll see. Yeah. And maybe that could work to balance the relationship between musician and Target employee. Who knows?
Yeah. Or if it's something that it becomes successful, then completely eliminate that balance, where it's just like musician.
Yeah, that would be really nice. Yeah. Because I don't know, to turn this into a conversation that's a bit more about music. I'll go ahead and assume to answer the question that contemporary musicians always get asked. It was like, when did you know that you wanted to do contemporary music? And there's this little bookstore in Target. It's a used, or not Target. Now I'm in the Target state of mind. There's this little bookstore in Boston, which is completely different from Target. That's downtown. It's called Brattle Bookshop, used bookstore with a really great selection. A lot of used bookstores, you get the books people didn't want, but somehow they get a really good selection. And I found Philip Glass's memoir, Words Without Music. And I was like, oh, that's a name that I recognize. I'll pick that up. And, I can't say that his music is, 100% for me. I'm not the audience that he's reaching for with his music, but he's got a lot of really, really profound things to say in that book, about listening to music and what music means to people, and a little bit of like really practical things about listening when it relates to performing. But one of the things he talks about in there is the point in his life where he was able to say, now I'm just a musician, because he was a cab driver and a plumber and this and that, and he talks about the point where he was finally able to say, I'm no longer a cab driver who composes, now I am a composer. And that's, I sort of feel like, I don't want to like make my assumptions, but when you tag the podcast with finding a career in music, that's sort of where I feel like that point is because I think every musician is like, I want to be a musician, but for right now I have to work at Target, or before this I worked at the concert hall at NEC, or I'm an ensemble manager, or if they're lucky enough to find something in music, I'm an ensemble manager, but I want to be a performer or something like that. And then I just really want that one day when it's like, I no longer am I working any of that. Now I'm a musician. So
what a great anecdote to bring up, especially in this time. Well, I don't know, is that considered an anecdote? I don't even know. Factoid.
yeah, well, it was an anecdote about a factoid, maybe.
Yeah.
An anecdote about how I came across that factoid.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's so cool. I know I have that same exact thought too. Like the moment where I can say I'm a full-time musician, like where I make all of my money from music, and not only do I make all my money from music, I make enough money to earn a living.
Yeah.
And I think what you just mentioned with Philip Glass's story is so pertinent, and resonates really, probably with all of us.
Yeah, and the thing that's really inspiring about his as well is I think it was pretty late for him. I think he was in his 40s maybe, which could serve to terrify. And I hope that my mentioning that doesn't serve to terrify, but to me that it serves to inspire that, like, he knew it was gonna be one day, and he saw it through, and it happened for him. And I think that it's been several years since I read the book, but I believe that one of the other things that's mentioned is he writes, like I said, for a very niche audience, but he didn't compromise that for popularity, which is something that I think is really, really important about who he is as a composer.
Yeah, that says a lot about his what do you say, like his remaining true to his art and his craft, and not to say that if you shift at all that means you're no longer remaining true. I mean, it's a common thing for us people when we're fans of a musician, like let's say, I don't know, I'm just gonna say Portugal the Man because I've been a fan of them for a while.
Mhm.
Like you listen to the first three albums, like since they come out, and then like years later, they're really well known, and it's like, screw you, man, I was there since day one. Like,
Mhm.
that whole loyal,
Yeah.
purist, whatever you want to call it. But um, that I think is a part of the artistic journey or artistic development, to
Mhm.
kind of grow and stuff. And so, and it's funny too that you mentioned how he wasn't in it for the popularity,
Mhm.
which it's really clear looking at the trajectory of his career. But it's funny too to see how now he's probably the most well-known contemporary composer outside of like Hans Zimmer and John Williams.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I mean, a big part of that is I mean, you don't have to listen for very long to know, like, this is Philip Glass.
Totally.
Because I mean, something that I do really find fascinating in his music is, it's very minimalistic, process oriented. It's like him and Reich being like the quintessence of minimalism. But the orchestration in Philip Glass's music is very unique.
Hmm.
I mean, it's very, very transparent and gets this. I mean, a lot of it almost almost makes for like the perception of an electronically synthesized sound in like how clear and transparent it is, and so I mean I feel like that's something that often gets overlooked, but with the mix of the very process oriented minimalism and like the orchestration that people often overlook, it's like you can't hear any of that music and say that's not Philip Glass.
That's a really good point. I don't think I've really heard anyone mention the orchestration of his music. Like
Yeah.
I'm more familiar with his chamber works. I think I've listened to like one of his symphonies,
Mm-hmm.
but I know he has a bunch, which kind of surprised me because I didn't realize he had written a lot of large scale works.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like reflecting on, I went to Neefnorf in um, 2015, Neefnorf Summer Music Festival in Knoxville, Tennessee. And that year, the theme or focus, whatever, was on minimalism mainly,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of Philip Glass that was played, and it was cool because I don't know if the pieces that were performed was designed to be open instrumentation, but like one of the pieces that was like two keyboardists, there was a saxist, there was a cellist, there was maybe a guitarist in there, like
Mm-hmm.
there was like 9 people on stage all playing like the same line.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was music in fifths or I can't remember what it was exactly.
Yeah, I might have been able to tell you right after I read that book, because I did a pretty deep dive into his music, but he has a ton of music. Like he has written a ton of music.
Mm.
So so I wouldn't be able to tell you, but
What's something from the book that you read that you find has shifted your perspective? Maybe like you said, listening, or I don't know, maybe how you view the music you're listening to.
something he said about listening that was more practical in terms of performance. Everybody who's a successful performer that's teaching you will tell you you need to hear the sound before you make it. Um, but I can't remember exactly how he explained it, but he explained it with an imagery that actually hit. Something about hearing a shadow of the sound before you make it, and it was after that I was finally able to sit down and say, oh, now I know how to hear the sound before I make it, and it that was really good, practically for me as a performer. God, it has been 5 years, so I can't remember the the small specifics of it, but
That's I love that. I find it so interesting when, like, especially things like that, like you might often hear, like you said, as a performer, to or be told that you should hear the sound before you make the sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I get it. But then, like you said, one day you're given the right, like, explanation of it, or analogy or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, and something clicks.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Because the thing that often happens is, at least for me as a bass player, whenever somebody says hear the sound before you make the sound, they're always talking about a big shift, and how to play a shift in tune. They're like, oh, don't worry about the geography of the fingerboard, just hear the sound before you make the sound, you'll get it. And then what they always say is, okay, play the low note, okay, now sing the high note, and then now hit the high note, and then it becomes a process of, now do that, now get it a little more accurate, now get it a little more accurate, now speed it up, now sing the note in your head before you shift. And but it was just something about, oh, there's a shadow of the sound that precedes, what you the sound that you end up making, that is, I don't remember the specifics, but then I was like, oh, that is 10 times more valuable for me to pick up on what this means, rather than ba ba. So it was really good.
using that sort of description. That's the thing too. It's like the just like shadow of a sound. What a poetic way to
Yeah.
explain it, and that already makes me feel even more like, oh my god, I'm so excited for this sound to happen now.
Yeah. Yeah. It is really beautiful imagery, and I'm a I think back about that a lot whenever it's not something that I'm like, particularly conscious of 100% of the time, but whenever I like, oh, the problem is I'm not hearing it, I'm like, I need the shadow of that sound. But it sort of gives me the same energy as, when people say on the threshold between sound and silence.
Mm.
And sort of steering away from this conversation, that phrase makes Tyler so mad.
Why?
That phrase makes Tyler irrationally mad.
I feel like I can already picture him like getting all worked up about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you spent an hour and a half with him. You know the MO, but because Tyler reads a lot, and he has a um, I don't know, the things that he focuses on have a very, common aesthetic, like, I don't know, he's a very diverse musician, but a lot about like the Lachenmann aesthetic, and like the that sort of thing, and it shows up in like everybody that describes that type of music. They're like, this composer's music really grapples with the threshold between sound and silence. And he was like, the first time I read it, it was so powerful, and then everybody started using it to talk about Lachenmann and Rebecca Saunders and Ashley Fury and all these other composers. And he's like, I just want somebody to come up with a new image other than the threshold between sound and silence, which I can understand, but still, for me, it it's a very resonant imagery. I did the write up for the Rebecca Saunders episode of Everything But the Kitchen Sink, and I put that in there. Wait, no, it wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was, I was writing a grant proposal, and I was talking about some of the composers that we were performing as an ensemble that year, and spicing it up with some adjectives or whatever, and the mercurial music of, and I put that in there, and Tyler and I have a sort of unspoken proofreading agreement for, when we write something with a little bit of weight to it, to just give it the once over for each other. And I sent it to him, and he was like, he was like, he's like, I like mercurial, but I don't love the threshold image in this application. I was like, okay.
You're striking that chord in him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Is my camera blurry? Am I blurry on here?
Maybe a touch.
I need to learn how to do these things. I don't know.
Do you have an external camera?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
I wish there was a way to like just jiggle it and then it gets better. Like cassettes back in the day, you just blow on it and then it's like, oh, it works now.
Game Boy cartridges.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day. I lent my Game Boy to a bass player friend of mine, who took a gap year from NEC, and so he brought it back to LA with him. And I thought I was lending him my Game Boy for a couple months, and he's had it for like 2 years now. But which is fine. I mean, he's like my best friend, but or one of my best friends. To all of you who are listening, I don't just have one. But man, I miss that. Just like Donkey Kong Country, backyard baseball. I need to get that from him, because now we're on the West Coast together, so I can.
How far is that from LA from San Diego?
So I think it's about 100 miles. But one of my dad's favorite stories to tell, dads love talking about how long they were sitting in traffic. And we came to San Diego as a family vacation when I was really, really young. And we are a huge baseball family. Go Braves. And so he thought, oh, we're in San Diego during the summer. We're going to go out to Dodger Stadium. We're going to see a Dodgers game. It's going to be great. And since we're on vacation, we're going to show up really early, and we're going to see the park. We're going to try to catch them when they're warming up and see if they'll sign autographs, all the things that make for ballpark memories. And so we had planned to get there like 3 hours early, and we got there after the first pitch, because San Diego to LA took us like 5 hours.
Wow.
And then LA back to San Diego after midnight that night, it's like an hour and a half.
Wow. Just because of traffic.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a long time ago, and I wasn't at an age where I was fully recording, but I don't know if there was an accident or if that was just the way things go, but I do remember just sitting still on the highway for a very, very long time, during probably a summer weekday in California.
That's wild. We'll keep this conversation going, but I'm going to stop my camera real quick and then see if that resets it at all. I'm noticing there's like some sort of, that looks a little better, right?
Yeah, that's much better. Yeah.
Okay. I noticed there was like a flickering in the background, like the light was changing or something. I could see it on the curtain back here. Weird. Something that I love about what you just mentioned in your story was like your family from Atlanta in San Diego going to LA, and like you're one of the things that you had to do, you're like, we gotta go to Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
And what I like about that is there's it sounds to me like there's almost sort of this it's almost like a sacred temple in a way, you know, like and like I mean that in a sense where it's like when you're walking through the parking lot and you're getting to the front doors, that feeling you get, you're like, oh my God, like I I need to be here. This is so exciting. You know, you're seeing it in person, and like, and that could even be like a restaurant or something. Like it's like, oh my God, this place has the best steak. You know, like that's what I liked about that story you just said right there. You know, your love for baseball, even as a family, you know.
Yeah, and I actually have a interesting way to steer this back towards music.
Sure.
So my father and my brother in particular live, breathe, and die baseball, and my brother collects Atlanta Braves bobbleheads. I got him one for Christmas. You know, he has them all out on his desk, and he has probably 70 Atlanta Braves bobbleheads and baseball cards and whatnot. And I've had, you know, sort of ups and downs in my inherited relationship with baseball, where sometimes I've been like, oh, this is great, and sometimes I've been like, actually, if you think about it, baseball's kind of boring. But so at that point, I remember the Dodgers were playing the Pirates that night, and I really liked the Pirates because I thought that their uniforms were really cool, and I was like, oh, I'm so gonna cheer for the Pirates. And I told my dad, I was like, I'm so gonna cheer for the Pirates. I finally get to see the Pirates play, and he was like, this is Dodger Stadium. You're not gonna cheer for the Pirates.
You don't do that.
Yeah. But yeah.
Committing sacrilege, right?
Yes. And making Dodgers fans angry, which is probably worse.
Right.
But so the way I was going to tie this back into music is that I went through this, and contemporary music in particular, I went through this phase where I was just such a like Western art music elitist, like so hard. And it started probably, I was in high school, and went through this phase of about 4 years where I was just like, people who are listening to you know, pop music and all that stuff, that's garbage, that get that out of here. And it's like, the music I listen to takes brain, and the music you listen to is just handed to you. And I felt the same way about sports. I was like, it's easy for you to sit and watch the sports, but you know, it's the thing I do is, you know, take. And then one day I just had sort of that sort of a moment where I was like, what am I doing? And I think it was in my turn to really, really focusing on contemporary music, is thinking like I like this, and I think that it's something that's different to me than, you know, the orchestral music, the, you know, the common practice orchestral music that I had been doing. A lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot of people, everybody has different opinions on where those two strains of music balance in terms of, you know, the influence of the old on the new. And I'm sort of, I started to get into, you know, the aesthetic of, or the aesthetics, plural, of contemporary music, because there are many. And I was like, you know, I think this is pretty different. And then I started looking back and seeing not everybody in the, you know, common practice Western art music tradition was feeling the way that I had felt about, you know, like, my music is academic and yours sucks. but some of them, and I got a perspective on like what was I, why had I thought that I had found the the music that makes you smarter or superior or whatever, and why did I think that it was so mutually exclusive from enjoying other things? um and so I, tying that back to that, I went through this phase where I was like, they're so into sports and just sitting by and watching. But now I watched, I think, every game that the Braves played this season, up until heartbreaking, heartbreaking Game 7 loss in the playoffs.
Oh,
Yeah. And then that was to the Dodgers. The Dodgers won the World Series, and now here I am in Southern California. Just like, go Braves. But I'm in San Diego, and the Dodgers beat the Padres right before that. So I'm in a place where I can sort of sympathize with a little bit of distaste towards the Dodgers.
You'll have to humor me on this because I don't know baseball all that well. So is that the
Yeah.
Padres? Is that San Diego's team?
Yeah, the Padres are San Diego's team, and then Los Angeles Dodgers, Atlanta Braves. And the Padres were a real story this year. Because the Padres historically, at least as long as I can remember, haven't been very good. But they had a couple rookies or rookies and young guys that just took off this year, and they went to. So the way the playoffs are set up is there's the National League and American League Division Series, Championship Series, and then the World Series. And then they added a round to that this year because of COVID. So there were 4 rounds of the playoffs, and the Dodgers knocked out the Padres in the 3rd round from the end, and the Braves in the next round to the end. And so, with the being a lifelong Braves fan, and then now being in San Diego, I'm in the presence of some really good baseball right now, and it's a great time to have moved to San Diego.
That's great, man. That's like the perfect place for you then.
Oh yeah. And then the Padres, because now it's the baseball off season and everybody's making their big trades and whatnot, and the Padres are stacking up with their trades, and somehow they are managing to get really good players really cheap.
That makes me think. I mean, like, you probably as a baseball fan might not be as psyched or anything like that, but that movie Moneyball.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen it. I realized like just recently that it's on Netflix, so I'm gonna watch it. But my brother read the book, and he's like, he doesn't read, but he was like, book about baseball.
I'm there.
Yeah, and he loves the economics of baseball and stuff like that. Like, he can always tell you how much somebody's getting paid, or like, oh, why doesn't this team just get this person? They're like, well, that guy's contract is, and this team's salary cap. I don't. But so yeah, that's right down his alley, or right up his alley, however people say that. But anyways, so I think I cut you off in your comment on Moneyball.
Oh no! I was just, it made me think of that because you said how they're getting a lot of players for cheap.
Oh yes,
and that was sort of the idea with the movie Moneyball, where they were getting non-conventional players who, like, like the pitcher that they got had a weird way of pitching the ball, and it was like the fraction of the price of what their like lead main player was, whatever.
Yeah. The team that does that, or did that this year, is the Tampa Bay Rays. They lost the World Series, which is makes them second place in all of baseball, I guess. But there were players on the Dodgers that were getting paid more than the entire Tampa Bay starting team.
Really, like single players on the Dodgers was getting paid more than the entire team.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, baseball teams all have different amounts of money to work with, and
Right.
so the teams that have a lot of money are the teams where the people are. So the Yankees and the Dodgers can just bully the rest of Major League Baseball with money.
Mm-hmm.
And so seeing a team like Tampa Bay, that's not a huge city, that's not a city with a huge baseball following, but seeing them be able to make this little team with what they got, that's pretty unconventional, and then go to the World Series, that was really nice. And they beat the Yankees.
So there's your classic underdog story, or like David and Goliath.
Yeah. So baseball was really fun this year, especially since I couldn't go anywhere. Back to my relationship building.
Lovely couch.
Yeah. Baseball was a really nice thing to have this year. But obviously I just had to bring in that little bit of selfishness that's like, why do they get to do their thing, but I don't get to do my thing?
I think we all have to bring that in at some point, because then you recalibrate in some capacity after that.
Yeah.
Self-reflection takes place very shortly after that.
Yeah, because it was sort of just this upsetting idea I had, that's like Major League Baseball was touting how rigorous they were being with testing and their isolation protocols and whatnot, and I'm like, music could be doing that, except they're working in the billions and we're working in like 3 figures.
Yeah,
many of us
6 figures if you're lucky.
Yeah. Like, so like they can get every player on their team tested every day for less than a percentage point of what they have, and I would have to probably write 6 grant proposals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's weird being in that sort of position.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand that their thing draws a bigger audience, and so that's where they get their money from. But it was just sort of just sort of a bummer to sit by and be like, well, some people are getting to do their thing this year, but
yeah, even at that too, to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit, is that it's still not the same for them though. Like,
yeah,
I don't imagine the stands are filled, and like that alone could probably have a large impact. Like, it's like performing to an audience-less venue,
Yeah. So Major League Baseball this year did no fans until the playoffs. And then they did like friends and family for the playoffs. And a lot of players talked about, it's just a different game. And I think they started pumping crowd noise into the stadiums, maybe, just so that it wasn't so empty. A fun thing about that is that when there's no fans and there's nothing to catch the echoes, and then there's like no noise over it, you can hear everything they say on the field.
Oh, that's so cool.
So funny. So that's something that I've always wanted more about baseball, is like, I want this to be more personal. Like, I want to know what's going on in the dugout. I want to know more about the players. Like, I want to know what they're saying when they argue with each other. And they are mean.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
so mean.
What do they say?
So the funniest one is, I had always thought of the umpires as, trying to keep the peace. But I realized this year that the umpires start a lot of shit.
Really?
And there was one player who, his name is Josh Donaldson. and there's a video about him on YouTube called Josh Donaldson, the angriest player in baseball. And it's a highlight reel of him just being a total asshole. And so, but it's kind of funny. Like,
yeah. There's some entertainment in that.
Yeah. And he got a pitch, and he thought it was a ball. The umpire called it a strike. And so he turned around to ask the umpire, did you call that high or did you call that outside? And the umpire was like, get back in the box. And so then the next pitch, he hits a home run, and he rounds the bases, and he kind of stood in the batter's box for a while just to like make a point, like to watch the home run. And when he crossed home plate, he kicked dirt over the plate, and the umpire's like, get the fuck out of here, Josh. And I was like that's what goes on a baseball field? Like, first of all, the first name basis is really funny. Just get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
But also, like, the umpire just being like, I know that this guy's arrogant, so I'm not going to give him time of day when he's just trying to play baseball.
Right.
And then, whatever. The other thing that's really funny is, so I always wondered what happens when baseball players are celebrating. Like, you know, they hit a walk-off home run and they're all jumping up and down on the field. Like, what are they saying? The only thing that they say is, let's fucking go. like they're jumping up and down, and everybody is just like the pigeons from Finding Nemo, just like mine. It's just like, let's fucking go.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. And then sometimes the players who pray on the field turn that into let's go.
Right.
To keep up the lifestyle. But yeah, it's that's like the only thing that baseball players know how to say. Let's go.
This is cool to hear, man, because I grew up, I played soccer growing up, and I played it into high school, you know, my senior year. And it reminds me, I totally forgot about this, but that feeling of walking onto the field when the game's about to start. And I remember like when I would walk out and you're waiting for the ball to be, you know, passed or whatever. And I remember I would be standing there kind of like bouncing to my, like, you know, like light little task and be like, let's fucking do this. So ready, you know, like, and like you're building up the adrenaline and the excitement and like a little bit of nervous, but like really excited, you know. It's cool to hear that.
Yeah.
Did you see, what was it called? That Michael Jordan documentary on Netflix.
Oh, The Last Dance?
Yeah.
No, I haven't watched it. I intend to, but usually I gravitate towards comedy on Netflix. But
yeah. I think there's probably some comedy in there. Well, no, there is. There's some funny moments where, like, while they're interviewing Michael Jordan, they hand him an iPad to be like, remember that time when I don't know, Penny Hardaway, whatever his name was, like did this thing, and then he hands it to him, and he's like, "What?" And you know, like you see his reaction in real time on the interview. But I bring that up because Michael Jordan is notoriously known for his trash talk, and sort of watching the documentary and stuff, I kind of wonder how much of that attitude contributes to the level of success. You know, not to say that in order to achieve that amount of success, you have to be a dick.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's something going on, whether it's arrogance or confidence. And because in sports, it's like obviously incredibly physical, but it's also very psychological too. You know, and so even just like the demeanor you put off, the aura can be intimidating. Whether you're actually saying something to that person or not, like you're dead, you know, like I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna score a point on you, like, or you're just like, I'm so ready, you know.
It's interesting. That's an interesting thing to think about. And my instinctual reaction to this is to say that's probably amplified in sports a lot more than say in music, because there's an opponent.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that attitude is very valuable in music. To like have that very head down gung ho thing of not like I'm gonna crush you, or like I'm gonna win, but like
Yeah.
just like this very seriousness about like I've got to work. Like um, I always love when people who have no experience with music realize that it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, I love when people who have no experience with contemporary music realize it's hard,
Mm.
especially other musicians. But there's this like you don't need to be out to get anybody, but I mean you have to have this seriousness about like I got to work hard or else I'm it's not going to be high caliber, and that's fine, but like I appreciate um like I don't want to say like hobby level music, but like I very much appreciate non-professional music, but
Mm.
like for people who are trying to be musicians and be professionals in music, like you gotta have that fire, um,
Mm.
that that keeps you going there. This I just thought of a funny story though, while I was saying that. Um,
Please, love to hear it.
so working at Target has had one benefit to me as a musician,
Mm.
and it has been to explain what I do to people who are non-musicians. I've had to get really good at that, because people are like, okay, so people are like, oh, well, once you start performing concerts, maybe we'll come see you, and I'll be like, I would very much appreciate that, but I need you to know that it's not what you're thinking it's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
So, I when I'm just joking around, I'm like, so it's I guess you could call it contemporary classical music or like experimental classical music, which means like classical instruments, but the music is weird and bad, and people are like, ha ha ha, that's so funny.
Right, right.
Or like when people are like serious about wanting to know what contemporary or experimental classical music or Western art music, and I'll say, so think of the Mona Lisa and then think of a Jackson Pollock. And the Mona Lisa is very meticulously painted. The lines are excellent. It's very representative of the subject matter. That is, a Beethoven symphony, if you will. Think of a Jackson Pollock and how, it's completely non-representative of anything. There's no, I mean, there's certainly form to it, and there's intention to it and idea to it, but if that was translated into sound, it would be something that's not as organized and aesthetically pleasant, if you will. So that's sort of the um, description I have for people who genuinely want to know what I mean when I say contemporary or experimental music.
Mm.
Is like, because people are typically more familiar with painting. Um, so I explained this to one of my coworkers, and she said, "Oh yeah, I remember I had to go to a UCSD concert for um, I had to go to a UCSD concert for extra credit one time, and the whole time I was thinking, oh God, I could do this." And I was like,
You have no idea.
yeah. So I told this to one of my buddies at one of the UCSD percussionists, and he thought it was funny, and he's like, yeah, you could make that squeak, but could you make that squeak in the right place?
Mm.
And I'm like, that's good.
In
That's
the right
really good.
way.
Yeah. Because I mean, at a certain point, like a lot of what I do is flail at my instrument,
Mm-hmm.
but I flail at my instrument with purpose, and that's what keeps me flailing. Yeah.
I like the flailing. I mean, it makes me think of like any other profession. It's like you're a pilot. It's like, yeah, I just point this big metal object in a specific direction,
Yeah,
you know?
but
And
it's got
like,
to be that direction to uh, like no variation from the hundredth of the degree, or else whatever. Um,
yeah, there's a lot of
yeah,
meticulousness to it. And like
yeah,
same thing in contemporary music.
yeah. It's it's this is to say that going back to what I was saying about um, people not realizing it's hard. I get a lot of people who don't do contemporary music think the same thing. It's just like you are. Um, I'm playing with the perfect sound and the perfect intonation, and and you're over there squeak 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 squeak, and I'm like, yeah, but like you're playing with perfect and sound and the perfect intonation and all this stuff to um oh, and I'll pause right here and say, yes, I also have to worry about intonation. Contemporary music also needs to be in tune, but
Yeah.
I'm not good at it, but I am worried about it. So but you're playing that way because that is the musical intention of the music that you're making. I'm playing this way because this is the musical intention of the music I'm making. And
Mm,
musical intention is something that's very, very, very hard to learn how to do effectively.
mm,
And like it's not necessarily hard to like I mean the technical parts of playing an instrument are also very hard to do. But I could give somebody a bass, and by the end of the day, they'd be able to play an F that sounds nice, and they'd probably be their hands would look like shit, and they would never be able to like play anything. But like they could make a good sound on the instrument by the end of the day,
mm.
just like they could play a really loud sol ponticello ricochet that busts everybody's ears by the end of the day. But you know it'd take a lifetime to develop that into something that's communicative. And I think that's a lot of where the art lies, and a lot of where the hard work has to go.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
I like the description you used. I'm gonna restart my camera again, by the way. I don't know what's going on with this thing.
It's all good.
I gotta figure that part out. I apologize for whoever watches this and has to suffer through the blurriness. My mom says the same thing about when she explains people the music that I write.
Mm-hmm.
She says, because my mom was an artist, she went to art school,
Mm-hmm.
and so she explains it like it's like abstract art. You know, there's a level of unpredictability, and you have to sort of allow the art to. You have to allow the art to guide you as opposed to having your preconceived notions as to what it will be.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can say to someone, "Oh, check out this artist. He's a blues guy," and then you'll have these ideas. Okay, blues. I know what that is. But then if you say to someone, "Oh, listen to Rebecca Saunders. She's a classical composer," and they're like, "Oh, Rebecca Saunders, classical music, Beethoven," and then they hear her music,
Yeah.
and it's like, "This is not Beethoven." And so that's such an important aspect. I think is allowing the art to happen, like being you have to be open enough to what it is in order to uh, uh even just understand, or whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of strains to pick up on from this, particularly the Rebecca Saunders strain. But this is why it pains me so much to compromise what I believe to tell non-musicians that I play classical music.
mhm.
And you know, um, because when I have no problem telling people that my background is in classical music. From the time I was in sixth grade until probably about 3 years ago, I had my life set on the fact that I'm going to play Mahler symphonies. Um, but now it hurts me so bad to say I'm a classical musician, or like I'm a classical bass player, because like, am I? Maybe it's it's from that tradition, but I don't feel that it describes, it describes what I do. And so, I'll say things like experimental classical music or contemporary classical music, or, like contemporary Western art music, because it needs something to to give to give someone a picture of what it is. But it just really hurts me to be like, I, for lack of a better word, am a classical musician.
Yeah, that's one of the great things. I love that you're experimenting, using your day job to experiment with, or explore, like, how can I have these conversations with the uninitiated,
Yeah. Yeah, and in this way, I am very, very committed to everything that I say and everything that I write meaning exactly what those words mean. And it's, if you'll notice, probably a lot of times during this, I pause for a really long time, because I like, it just really irks me when what I say isn't exactly what I mean. And that's another thing that really bothers Tyler. Tyler does a great impersonation of me trying to have a conversation. He's like, well, okay, I think I got it. No, anyways, but I was, one of the assignments that I had last quarter was to make a syllabus for a class that I wish I could teach, or a class that I wish I could take. And I really want somewhere down the road to be associated with a university, not because, or a school, not because, it's my dream to feed into academia, but because those are the people that get the stability to be able to explore their interests more freely. I think, I don't know, that some of them will tell you differently, but so that is how I think that I will be able to one day capitalize on my interest in music theory. So I was like, yes, I get to design the music theory course I want. This is great. And I started trying to name the course, and I was like, okay, analysis. It's a course on analysis of and I thought about this title for a long time, and I was like, I think it ended up being Analysis of 20th and 21st Century Notated Western Art Music. And I was like, boy, if I saw that on a course listing online, I'd be like, the title has too many words in it. Next. But I was like, I was just like trying to think of a way to describe the music that I'm interested in analyzing. And the most concise that I could make it was 20th and 21st century, speaking too fast, 20th and 21st century notated Western art music. And then even there, I was like, I'm still leaving out some qualification for this. But I don't know.
I think you're heading in the right direction with it. Like, you have the right idea. It's tough. It sort of makes me think about like YouTube channels like 12 Tone, or what's another one? Oh God. There's this one guy who talks a lot about different tuning temperaments and microtones and stuff. I think his name is John something with an M. And Adam Neely is an example as well. But like, these people who have these YouTube channels where they talk about more abstract or like complex ideas within music beyond the common practice period. It's cool to see that people are out there doing that, and I like hearing that you're interested in bringing some sort of analytical tools, teaching some sort of class that might not be. I mean, it sounds to me like you're interested in teaching some sort of analysis that is either atypical or I guess, I don't know.
Well, to me, to me, it's a response to two problems, and that's that your core music theory curriculum in conservatory may or may not deal with atonal music. It at NEC learning about theory after what is it 1908 or whatever was an elective. So I mean, I got to learn about it, but not everybody had to, and I think that that's a big gap, because I mean, even the people that want to play in an orchestra, like orchestras these days are doing, commissions and trying to branch out and respond to the shift towards what audiences want. And so, I mean, it's still important to know about the music that you're playing, and even if you're going to play in an orchestra, like that's it. But the other thing is, I don't think any measures are in place anywhere to say that your musical theory or your music theory education needs to deal with analysis. And luckily for me, I had a theory teacher through all of tonal theory that did he would find excerpts to we learn the concept and then analyze the piece. But a lot of other people that I was seeing, that wasn't the case. And so like I think that theory in the abstract is a fun tool to have. I mean, it's cool, it's impressive, but without using it for analysis or I guess for composition, then it's really sort of not something that you're utilizing. And so I think that it's a big fallacy in music education as it exists today, that usually music theory is not applied to analysis as it could be. And so this hypothetical course that I designed, I wanted it to be like, we're not going to do anything that's not analysis. And I made a syllabus that was like, we're going to spend the first 6 weeks of the class talking about like a different parameter of music to analyze each week, whether it's pitch, rhythm, timbre, form, process. I think it was 5: pitch, rhythm, timbre, form, process. And I picked a piece from my bank of knowledge that I know would be a good example of that, each of those things. And then after that, you're going to pick a piece of music that you like, and you're going to figure out what's going on. And, we'll meet in hypothetical class, and, you'll talk about what you discovered this week. And then by the end of this, you'll have an analysis paper that's not like, it's not a worksheet where you've identified what type of triads or whatever is going on. This is an analysis paper that you've written where you've applied a knowledge of music theory, which is something that I never had a chance to do. Well, I shouldn't say that. I had sort of one where there was a class I took on Xenakis and Ligeti. I believe Emma talked about it. And
yeah.
Well, lots of fun things from that. But in that one, we got excerpts from pieces by Xenakis and Ligeti to analyze. But I think that it's a huge thing to overlook, the importance of being able to hand someone with all this theoretical knowledge, just hand someone a piece of music and be like, now tell me what's going on. So
I like that a lot, honestly. I think that's so important because I've recognized it as well, where or at least within myself, really, um, there's so much more to the music than just even the rhythms, the pitches, the harmonies, right? There's pacing, there's flow, there's continuity, there's variation. You know, there's actually I think I have it right here. Do you know? Can you read that?
Musical composition, craft, and art. Yes.
Yeah. So if you haven't heard of this guy, Alan Bilkin, he's a Canadian composer. I think he taught at McGill for a while. He has a YouTube channel where he talks about everything in this book.
Mhm.
This book is one of the few books I know of that actually talks about composing and analyzing music outside of just the pitch structures, the rhythmic structures, the harmonic structures. He talks about things like continuity,
Mhm.
Variance, invariance, you know,
Mhm.
and or like, for example, what makes an effective climax? You know, where's the beginning of the climax? How does that contribute to the culmination of the peak? And then what about coming out of the climax?
Mhm.
You know, and this book was really inspirational for me. I wrote this piece. You know Departure Duo in Boston?
Yes. The piece with the what did she say at the beginning? There's like the one that's like until something happens, there will be no reaction.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. It's called Confronting Distance.
Mm-hmm.
That piece I wrote while I was like prime reading this book, and I was thinking about everything that he was saying in regards to proportion and like, you know, how long is this moment taking place, and then like what can I do to disrupt it or enhance it or whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that if you listen to that piece, you might even recognize certain proportions in regards to like how long the climax lasts versus how long coming out of it lasts.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyways, that book I think explains it really well and is approachable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I googled it and pulled it up so that I can find it after this, because that's exactly what I'm interested in here. Is like there's more theory than just harmony, and so yeah, that's really good to know.
Yeah, it's cool. It's great too because the book he uses all kinds of examples. He uses Bach, he uses Xenakis, he uses film scores, video games, you know, music. But that's the cool thing about it is it's not style specific. It's not genre specific.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally just what is this sound that happens? How does it happen? When does it change? You know, like more just general ideas about it, which sounds to me like what you're talking about. Which
yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying here, and I think that would be I'll have to check it out, but I think that moving that into the scope of what we're teaching young musicians, that theory could be or is something that's incredibly necessary. And
I will say that if you start that class, I will gladly sign up for it.
Great.
I will be the first on that roster.
Great. Yeah, I'll let you know. But let's see. So it'll probably be a couple years, but I'll keep you in mind.
Can I request a virtual audit?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Then I'm there.
Yeah.
Unless I'm in a place in my life where I can financially handle traveling across the country and stuff, then I will gladly show up.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I got to get going in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Before I do, though, is there anything that you wanted to touch upon we didn't talk about?
Well, I mean, we had discussed the getting into the music of Rebecca Saunders, but that's no short fleeting topic.
Yeah, I know we missed out on a couple of things that we wanted to get into.
But something that I think that we could cover, I mean, a little bit in just a few minutes, is I noticed when reading through all of your maybe this is a little bit of a longer topic, but we can keep it down. Reading through all of your bios and stuff, you as a composer really value collaboration, and it's very evident here. like in this podcast and whatnot, that you really value collaboration. And we had a chat about this at UCSD in one of our classes about like the collaboration between composers and performers and turning it into something that's truly collaborative and fruitful. And so I don't mean to turn this around into me interviewing you, but or me grilling you with questions, but I wanted to know if you just had, because the way this conversation ended, a lot of performers were like, I don't know how to make a collaboration with a composer fruitful for me rather than just for the piece that they're writing. So I think it would be a nice little bow on this if you had any ideas about from a composer's perspective how collaboration is fruitful for both you and the performer, since I know that's something that you mention a lot in your bios.
Yeah. Oh, that's a cool question, man. I love that you're talking about that in your class too.
Mm-hmm.
What, if you don't mind me, I'm curious, like what extent of, like, to what degree of collaboration did you talk about within that class? Like, do you mean collaborating in regards to having a mutual sort of give and take back and forth, or where it's like each person is as involved in the project equally, like
Yeah. So basically what the conversation ended up being was a lot of performers were saying that when they work with a composer for business rather than in the name of like, this is my friend and we just want to, make music together. But when they work for a composer in a strictly professional way, they feel like their role is to have a composer tell them, make this sound, make this sound, make this sound. Okay, cool. Now I'll go write a piece for you. And I like it's in that piece you wrote for Departure. It's very evident to me that you took into account that they are all about theatrics, or not all about. They're very good musicians as well, but they value the theatrics, and it's just something that, like, reading through all your stuff, I noticed a lot that you mentioned the collaboration being fruitful for both parties and for you to account for how this person performs. And so I guess just from a composer's perspective, logistically, how does that look when you are in collaboration?
Yeah, sure, cool. I like too that you mentioned like more of the where the relationship with the person isn't like a personal friendship. You kind of just met them.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly how it worked out with me and Departure Duo, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I just cold emailed them. I heard about their project from a friend and showed them some of my stuff, and then we developed a relationship together.
Mm-hmm.
For me, this is all like my own, perspective and how I operate and stuff. But for me, it's important that I understand as much what the person is interested in. I don't want to say capable of doing, but see, I'm getting into weird territory with like wording. I guess willing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so for example, yesterday I actually had a video call like this with someone who I'm collaborating with right now, my buddy Thomas Morris. He's an oboist in Michigan. And one of the first things I asked him was, what's a multiphonic that you play that you know already that can that is reliably responsive and has a wide dynamic range?
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea behind, like, I purposely asked that question because I could go through all kinds of books and try and find a specific multiphonic, like, oh, play this one because it has this pitch content or whatever. but I was coming from it from the perspective of what is something for him that is already natural to his playing, right? And so to flip that a little bit for the performer's perspective is have a couple things in mind that you already is germane to your way of playing. You know, like one question I really like to ask, because I think it's interesting too, is there anything that you do as a performer when you're not actually practicing or performing, when you're just noodling? And you always find yourself doing this thing, like maybe just for fun, you bow behind the bridge, but as you're doing it, you're like tapping your fingers up here, you know? That's an interesting thing. And that's also something that you just naturally do. So if I can incorporate that into the composition, because that makes you who you are, that also makes the piece more yours than like any other person who's going to perform it. It's more of that to me is more of a collaboration, because you're making it specific to that performer. So I think it's a great idea or it's useful for performers to have an idea of things that they're comfortable doing and things that they have that the composer might not even be aware of. And then to kind of expand upon that a little bit too, when it comes to working with composers, like we don't know shit, right? Like, so like if you could humor us as much as you can, like if you need to talk to us like we're 5-year-olds, please do it. I personally like talk to me as if I've never even heard of this instrument before. You know, I actually said that to my one buddy who's a saxophonist, and I was like, tell me about the baritone sax as if I know nothing about it. Yeah, man. Do you want me to go farther into that? I can talk more about this sort of.
Well, I mean, just I know you said you're a little pressed for time, but
yeah, I have. I got about 10 minutes. I can go into 1:45. So
go for it.
Yeah, and well, was there anything specific? Like I know I've been talking a little bit. So was there anything that you wanted to kind of jump in on, and if or?
No, I mean I was just the reason I ask is because we had this conversation in our studio class about this, and then all of us about how these about how these performers were having like dissonant relationships with composers, and then I turn around and like the next thing I see is your bio that says that you value a collaboration that's truly collaborative. Like I was like, that's a perfect lineup of I don't know if people believe in coincidence or whatnot, but so I was just really interested to hear thoughts on this dissonance between composers and performers, and how to make fruitful collaboration from the perspective of a composer, since we talked about it for like an hour among performers.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me that, man. I mean, and also even just looking at my website, like that's really cool that you took the time. I want to tack on something else there too, because I think it's important. Is part of what could be part of the disconnect there is a lack of clarity for what the vision is supposed to be for the piece. So to give another example, like I can only reference my own sort of collaboration.
Yeah.
I worked with this saxophone duo who we're still kind of doing things where the piece has been written and now we're sort of sharpening or rounding out the edges. And this collaboration started in May, I think, and I had a couple phone calls with one of the members, just sort of talking about what they might be interested in stuff. And then we had, I think, maybe 1 or 2 video calls that were probably around an hour or so. And those video calls almost entirely consisted of just talking about what the piece could be. What is it that they're looking for? Like, why did you come to me? What is there some sort of theme for your performance? And then this starts to go into the conversation that I just mentioned before, where it's like, what are some of the limits that you would like to set? Like, are there things that you are just tired of doing? Do you hate arpeggios? I won't write them, like, so trying to find some sort of like I said, vision, like whatever your ultimate goal is, that way everyone is in line or aligns with what the purpose, what they need to do to accomplish that goal. And the thing about that too is it doesn't have to be set in stone either. Like it can shift along the way. So to reference that sax duo again, the plan was to have that piece performed at museums, art museums and art galleries. And so as I was writing the piece, and we had a lot of discussions about the space itself, like museums are really wide, a lot of reverb, you know. So, but then the pandemic continues, right? So we had to shift that to be like, okay, well, this might be an online performance, or we'll have to prolong it. And then we had discussions about what does that now look like? Does it change the piece, you know? And so that's the other thing I would say is try to find a way to become aligned with your artistic vision of what you want and what the composer wants.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, that's really good.
I hope it helps.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you mentioned early on in there, you know, this is just your perspective, but I think that's a very valuable. I mean, that's a very valuable consideration. It's like, you know, something that I've been noticing a lot lately is that music is just sort of what we synthesize from, you know, the perspectives of other people, and like, or because, you know, this conversation we were having is just in class, it was, you know, perspectives from performers of what collaboration with composers is for them. And I was thinking in the moment, it's like, okay, you know, all I can do with this conversation is consider these opinions, and then, you know, add that, or not add that, but add the influence of that to my own. And so yeah, that's really rich. I appreciate that.
Yeah, totally, man. And it's an important conversation to have, you know, because in music school we're taught the craft and to be very good at the craft, which just exclusively means like playing your instrument, composing, and that's incredibly important, you know. But you're not entirely, you don't get a lot of the business side of it, like how do I start a nonprofit, how do I do taxes, how do I, you know. And you're also not getting a lot of the interaction, you know, like you just mentioned, collaboration, and that's why I mentioned the whole idea of articulating a vision together, because not everyone has the same collaborative interest. Like maybe you as a performer, maybe you don't want to be as involved in like discussions and talking about what it is. Maybe you're just like, dude, just write the piece and send it to me.
Yeah.
You know, or maybe the composer's like that. Maybe they're like, I just need to be alone and write the piece and then I'll send it to you. So kind of gauging that stuff is so important. And I think it's something that you'll, as performers, as colleagues, you know, like we develop through the interactions and experiences that we have, and we refine it as it goes on.
Yeah.
You know, we get better at it.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you asking me that though. That was cool. I haven't had too many. I've had a few people kind of like ask me a couple of questions, but I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, before we cut off here, do you have any things you want to plug at all? Any like events or some social media? Maybe Alinéa's got something cool coming up with the podcast, or
well, yeah, let me make sure that I get our socials right.
If there's anything that you forget to mention, I can always plug it in, you know, post production.
Yeah, I'll for sure let you know. But yeah, our Instagram as an ensemble is Alinéa Ensemble, no spaces, no punctuation.
Could you spell that real quick?
Alinea Ensemble, and then if you want to find me, Hens.Matthew, HENS.Matthew with 2 T's. we've got something dropping soon, a collaboration with Pamela Z. I think they talked about that. They were on here. Robbie's been putting it together, and it looks really good. So we're super excited for that. And then hopefully, we don't have anything set in stone after that, but we started some dialogues at the beginning of the pandemic that are still set to flesh out at some point. So we'll definitely be keeping everybody up to date on socials about those. Nothing really personally for me, but this ensemble is for me the center of what I do. So that's, in plugging them, it is in coincidence plugging me.
Yeah, that's you're but a member of the ensemble, and
yeah,
that's awesome. I'm excited for the Pamela Z collaboration, and let's not forget to you bassists out there, or you chamber ensembles who might need some coaching. Matt's your guy. You know how to contact him.
I can be on Zoom with you from anywhere in the world.
There you go.
So, there you go.
You get it from the beauty of San Diego till wherever. Yeah. Well, before I stop the recording, man, thank you so much for being on here. This is awesome.
Yeah, this was great. I was really bummed to miss the first one, but this was excellent. I'm really appreciative that you had me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. We made it happen.
We sure did.